Stop. Don't scroll. Don't close this. I need you to pause right now. This is not random. This is not an accident. And no, this is not for everyone. This message found you because something has already started moving behind the scenes, and you feel it, even if you don't understand it yet. There's a heaviness around your heart lately, a strange pressure, a sense that something is about to change, but you don't know whether to be excited or afraid. That's not anxiety, that's awareness. You've been ignoring the signs, telling yourself, I'll deal with it later, but later is running out. Listen carefully. There is a window opening right now, a small one, and if you miss it, you will still survive, but you will always wonder what could have been different. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you, because within the next short while, sooner than you expect, a conversation will happen that involves your name. A decision will be made that affects your direction, and not everyone involved has clean intentions. You've trusted too easily before. You've ignored your instincts because you didn't want conflict. You've stayed quiet to keep the peace. But silence has cost you more than you realize. I see how tired you are, not physically, emotionally. You've been strong for too long without being supported. You smile, you show up, you tell people you're fine, but when you're alone, your thoughts get loud. You've asked for clarity, you've asked for protection, you've asked for a sign. This is it. And no, I'm not angry with you, I'm not disappointed. I'm trying to reach you before you repeat a pattern that almost broke you last time. There is someone around you right now who is not being honest. They don't see themselves as evil, they see themselves as justified. That makes them dangerous. They smile, they speak gently, but they are watching how much access you give them. And if you're not grounded, you will mistake familiarity for safety. I need you present now, not tomorrow, not after one more video, now. Because once momentum starts, it's harder to stop. You've been sensing a pull, an urge to slow down, to step back, to reassess. That wasn't laziness, that was wisdom trying to get your attention. You're standing at a crossroads whether you admit it or not. One path keeps things familiar, but drains you quietly. The other path feels uncertain, but aligned. And the reason you've been uncomfortable lately is because you've outgrown the version of life you keep trying to return to. You can't shrink back into what no longer fits. There are things you've been praying to move forward, but you keep reopening doors that were already closing. That's why progress feels delayed. This isn't punishment, it's redirection. Something is being removed, not to hurt you, but to make room. And yes, it will feel sudden. Yes, it will feel emotional, but afterwards there will be relief. You won't miss what leaves the way you think you will, because deep down, you already know it was heavy. There is also something coming, not earned, not forced, but prepared. An opportunity, a connection, a realization. It won't arrive with fireworks, it will arrive quietly. And that's why so many people miss moments like this. They're waiting for drama, not truth. I'm asking you to slow your reactions, watch more than you speak, feel before you decide. Not every invitation deserves your yes, not every apology deserves access. You are allowed to protect your energy without explaining yourself. You are allowed to choose peace over being liked. You've been conditioned to believe that setting boundaries makes you difficult. It doesn't. It makes you safe. There is strength returning to you, slowly, steadily. You may not feel powerful yet, but you're becoming grounded. And grounded people don't need to chase, they attract. Something you thought was gone for good may resurface, but not in the same form. This time, you'll see it clearly. And when you do, you'll understand why the delay was necessary. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not late. You were being prepared. Stay present. Don't rush to label this feeling. Don't dismiss it. Take a breath. Let yourself be still for a moment, because clarity doesn't shout, it settles. And if you're still listening right now, it means you're ready to move differently this time. Not faster, not louder, wiser. Stay with me. Don't rush past this part, because what I'm about to say is the part most people avoid hearing. Not because it isn't true, but because it forces them to look honestly at their life. You've been giving people the benefit of the doubt for too long. You've been explaining away red flags because you didn't want to believe what your intuition already knew. You told yourself, they didn't mean it like that. They're just stressed. I'm probably overthinking. But you weren't overthinking. You were under-listening. There is a difference. Some people don't come to destroy you directly. They come to slowly drain you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, while smiling. And the reason this has been hard for you is because you are naturally empathetic. You see potential. You see the good. But empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. I need you to hear this clearly. Not everyone who stays around you is meant to go where you're going next, and that's okay. There are people who benefited from the version of you that didn't ask questions, from the version of you that overgave, from the version of you that stayed quiet to avoid conflict. But that version of you is fading, and they can feel it. That's why energy feels off lately. That's why conversations feel forced. That's why something feels misaligned, even when nothing obvious is wrong. You're changing. And whenever someone changes, it exposes who is only comfortable when you stayed small. There is a situation forming right now that will test your discernment. It may come disguised as an offer, a request, an apology, a reconnection, or just a conversation. It will sound reasonable. It will feel familiar. But familiarity is not confirmation. This is where you slow down. You don't owe immediate access. You don't owe instant trust. You don't owe explanations for your hesitation. Your peace is not something to negotiate. I know you've been tired of protecting yourself. I know part of you wants things to be easy again, but easy at the cost of alignment is expensive. You've already paid that price once. This time, you'll recognize the difference between something that excites you and something that steadies you. Excitement rushes. Alignment settles. Pay attention to how your body responds, not just your thoughts. Does it feel pressured, or does it feel clear? Because pressure is not guidance. There's also something else happening that you haven't noticed yet. Someone is watching how you move now, how you respond, how you don't react the way you used to. They expected you to chase, to explain, to bend, and your silence has unsettled them. Silence is powerful when it comes from clarity, not fear. You don't need to announce your growth. People will feel it. And yes, some will misunderstand it. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're cold. But what they really mean is, you're no longer accessible in the way I benefited from. Let them talk. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be aligned. There is protection around you right now, but protection only works if you don't keep reopening the door. You've been tempted to go back before, back to people, back to habits, back to cycles, not because they were good, but because they were familiar. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace, but peace is what you asked for, and peace requires a different response. You're learning to pause instead of react, to observe instead of assume, to choose instead of default. That's growth, and growth always feels lonely before it feels free. You may feel slightly disconnected right now, like you don't fully belong where you used to, but you haven't arrived where you're going yet. That's not failure. That's transition. This is the space where clarity forms. I need you to stop doubting your discernment. The discomfort you feel around certain people lately is not random. The lack of motivation towards certain paths is not laziness. It's your internal compass recalibrating. Something is falling out of alignment, and something else is lining up. But here's the part that requires honesty. You cannot carry everyone with you into the next phase. Some people are lessons, not lifelong companions. Releasing them doesn't make you cruel, it makes you truthful. And truth always feels heavy at first, until it sets you free. There's also a decision coming where you'll be tempted to say yes out of guilt. Pause. Guilt is not a reason to commit. If you feel obliged instead of inspired, that's your answer. You've spent enough time living according to expectations that were never designed for you. Your life is not meant to be a constant explanation. You were allowed to choose differently, even if others don't understand it, especially if they don't understand it, because clarity doesn't need permission. There is strength returning to you quietly, not the loud kind, the steady kind, the kind that doesn't argue, the kind that doesn't chase, the kind that doesn't need validation. And that strength will be tested soon, not to break you, but to confirm that you're ready. Ready to walk away without drama, ready to say no without guilt, ready to trust yourself again. You've been asking for a breakthrough, but breakthroughs don't always look like doors opening. Sometimes they look like doors closing, without explanation. And this time, when it happens, you won't fight it. You'll feel a strange calm instead. That calm is alignment. Stay present. Stay here. Because now we move from warning to understanding. What you're experiencing right now isn't confusion, it's the collapse of an old identity. The version of you that survived, the one that adapted, tolerated, compromised, endured, that version has done its job, and it cannot come with you any further. That's why things feel unfamiliar. That's why old motivations don't work anymore. That's why you feel detached from things that once mattered so much. You're not losing yourself, you're shedding survival mode. For a long time, you lived from reaction. You responded to what people needed. You adjusted to what situations demanded. You became excellent at reading rooms, reading moods, reading people. But in the process, you learned to ignore yourself. And now, that part of you is waking up. That's why you're questioning things you never questioned before. That's why your tolerance is lower. That's why you no longer feel impressed by surface-level connections. Depth has found you, and depth changes everything. Here's the truth most people never realize. When you stop abandoning yourself, you will disappoint people who were comfortable benefiting from your silence, and that disappointment is not your responsibility. You were never meant to be endlessly accommodating. You were never meant to be endlessly available. You were never meant to carry emotional weight that wasn't yours. You were meant to be anchored. There is a shift happening in how people respond to you now. Some feel challenged by your presence. Some feel exposed. Some feel unsure where they stand with you. That's because your energy is no longer asking for permission. You're no longer seeking approval, and that unsettles those who relied on it. Power doesn't announce itself, it stabilizes, and stability makes instability uncomfortable. You may notice this. People testing boundaries, people probing for reactions, people trying to pull you back into old dynamics. Not because they want to hurt you, but because your growth threatens the role they had in your life. Let this land. Not everyone who resists your growth is evil. Some are simply afraid of losing access. But access is not entitlement. You are learning the difference between connection and attachment. Attachment says, I need you to stay the same so I feel safe. Connection says, I support your growth, even if it changes things. Watch who celebrates your evolution. Watch who only liked you when you were predictable. That observation will save you years. You're also realizing something else, quietly, internally. You don't want chaos anymore. Not exciting chaos, not emotional intensity disguised as passion, not drama mistaken for depth. You want clarity, consistency, peace that doesn't need to be defended. And that desire alone changes the trajectory of your life, because chaos loses power over people who stop romanticizing it. You're becoming selective, not closed, not cold, selective, and that's wisdom. You don't need to prove your strength anymore. You've survived enough to know you have it. Now you're choosing where it goes. This phase may feel lonely, but it's temporary. You're between identities, no longer who you were, not yet fully who you're becoming. This is the quiet in-between, and it's sacred. You are recalibrating your standards, what you allow, what you tolerate, what you walk away from. And the more you honor that inner alignment, the less explanation you'll feel the need to give. You're realizing something powerful. You don't need closure from everyone. You don't need answers from everyone. You don't need validation to move on. Sometimes clarity comes from observing who stays silent, who avoids accountability, who resists honest conversation. Silence is information. So is discomfort, and you're finally listening. There's a strength in you now that doesn't look like force. It looks like restraint, the ability to pause, to not react, to let things reveal themselves. That's maturity. That's authority. And authority always attracts both respect and resistance. You'll notice people treating you differently soon, some with more respect, some with distance, some with subtle tension. That's normal. You're no longer energetically negotiable. And here's the part that matters most. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood because you understand yourself. That is the foundation of everything that comes next. The next opportunities that enter your life will require this version of you, the grounded one, not the desperate one, the discerning one, not the accommodating one. That's why the old had to fall apart. You couldn't carry new stability with old coping mechanisms. You couldn't receive aligned connection while clinging to misaligned bonds. This wasn't loss, it was preparation, and you handled it better than you think. You didn't collapse, you didn't harden, you didn't shut down. You reflected, you adjusted, you stayed conscious. That's rare. And that's why what comes next will feel different, not intense, not chaotic, clear. There is momentum building, quietly.
Now listen carefully, because this is where most people get confused. When something leaves your life, your mind immediately asks, "What am I losing?" But the real question has always been, what is finally being allowed to arrive? You weren't emptied to be left alone. You were cleared to be aligned. The reason things had to fall away is because they were occupying space meant for something more stable, something that wouldn't demand pieces of you in exchange for staying. You're beginning to notice it now. Your nervous system is calmer. Your thoughts aren't racing the same way. You're not constantly waiting for the next emotional wave. That's not boredom. That's peace returning. And peace can feel unfamiliar when you've lived in intensity for too long. At first, peace feels quiet. Then it feels empty. And only later does it feel safe. You're in that middle stage right now. Your life is reorganizing itself around a different center. Not urgency, not fear, not reaction, but clarity. You're realizing you don't need to chase connection anymore. You don't need to force conversations. You don't need to keep explaining your value. What's meant to meet you will recognize you without persuasion. And yes, something is coming, but it won't arrive in the way your past taught you to expect. It won't pull you into emotional highs and lows. It won't demand constant reassurance. It won't confuse you and call it chemistry. This next phase arrives with steadiness. You'll feel grounded around it, not anxious. You'll feel seen, not evaluated. You'll feel accepted, not tolerated. That's how you'll know it's aligned. The reason this feels new is because you're no longer attracted to what feels familiar. You're attracted to what feels safe. And safety doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it doesn't pressure. It stays. You may already sense subtle shifts, different conversations, different opportunities, different types of people noticing you. Not louder, just clearer. And here's the part that matters. You're not trying to prove yourself anymore. You're showing up as you are, and that's enough. This is the version of you that doesn't negotiate self-respect for connection, the version that doesn't confuse effort with love, the version that doesn't need chaos to feel alive. You're learning to trust calm. You're learning that alignment doesn't need drama to feel meaningful, and because of that, your standards have changed. You're no longer impressed by surface-level gestures. You're no longer drawn to intensity without consistency. You're choosing depth with stability. And that choice will protect you in ways you don't yet understand. There will be moments when the old tries to resurface, not because it belongs, but because it senses it no longer has power. Don't romanticize the return. What left did so because it could not meet you at this level. You didn't fail it. You outgrew it. Replacement doesn't always look like more. Sometimes it looks like less, but better. Less noise, less tension, less explaining. More clarity, more presence, more ease. You'll notice your energy becoming valuable, not because you're withholding, but because you're intentional. People will feel that. Some will lean in respectfully, some will fade away. Both outcomes are correct. You are entering a chapter where your life no longer revolves around managing others' emotions. You're free from that role now. Your responsibility is alignment, not accommodation. And alignment attracts what matches it. That's why this next season will feel lighter, even though it requires strength, because strength rooted in self-trust doesn't exhaust you, it sustains you. You are no longer preparing for something that might happen. You're positioning yourself for something that already exists. And the more you stay grounded in this version of yourself, the less likely you are to accept anything that requires you to abandon it. This is not the end. This is the settling. And once things settle, momentum follows. Stay here. Not because something dramatic is about to happen, but because this is the moment where things finally make sense. You're not waiting anymore. That's the difference now. Before, you were waiting for clarity, for permission, for reassurance, for someone else to confirm what you already felt. Now, you're steady. You don't feel the urge to chase explanations. You don't feel pulled to reopen old conversations. You don't feel the need to justify your choices. That's not indifference. That's integration. You've reached the point where lessons turn into instincts, and instincts don't argue, they guide. This is why the cycle ends here. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you no longer respond the same way to the same triggers. You don't personalize what isn't yours. You don't internalize what doesn't align. You don't confuse familiarity with belonging. That's growth that sticks. You are no longer operating from fear of loss. You're operating from trust in direction. And trust changes everything. Here's the quiet truth. What's coming into your life now doesn't need saving. It doesn't need fixing. It doesn't need convincing. It meets you where you are. You'll recognize it because it won't require strategy. It won't require performance. It won't require self-abandonment. It will feel natural. And natural doesn't mean boring. It means sustainable. This time, you won't mistake intensity for meaning. You won't confuse effort with love. You won't accept chaos as depth. You've outgrown that lens. You're stepping into a phase where your nervous system matters as much as your dreams, where peace is not a reward, it's a requirement. And because of that, the people, paths, and opportunities that enter your life will reflect stability back to you. Not perfection, but consistency. There will still be moments of doubt. That's human. There will still be challenges. That's life. But you will no longer question your worth in those moments. That's the shift. You're not trying to prove anything now. You're not trying to be chosen. You're choosing. And that choice alone changes the quality of everything that follows. You'll notice yourself responding differently, listening more, reacting less, observing patterns instead of getting lost in stories. That awareness is your new foundation. You are no longer available for cycles that require you to betray yourself to belong. You are no longer afraid of endings because you trust beginnings. And here's the part that matters most. Nothing that truly belongs to you will require urgency to stay. Nothing aligned will threaten you with loss to gain compliance. Nothing meant for you will ask you to shrink so it can remain comfortable. This time, you move forward with discernment, not defense. And that means when something doesn't fit, you won't force it. You'll release it without resentment. Because you understand now, letting go is not failure, it's feedback. And you've listened. That's why this cycle closes cleanly. No dramatic goodbye, no emotional collapse, no unfinished business running in the background. Just clarity. You don't need to announce this change. You don't need to explain it. Your life will reflect it. The way you walk away sooner, the way you pause before committing, the way you choose rest without guilt, those are signs of alignment. And alignment compounds. From here on, things won't feel rushed, they'll feel right. You won't be pulled into the same tests again because you've already passed them. Not by being perfect, but by being honest. Honest with yourself. Honest about what costs too much. Honest about what drains instead of nourishing. That honesty is what protects you now. This isn't an ending. It's a reset, one that doesn't erase the past, but no longer repeats it. You're moving forward with memory, not baggage. And that's the difference between healing and pretending. You're not pretending anymore. You're present. And presence is what allows what's next to meet you fully. Take a breath. This is where you stop circling. This is where you continue, cleanly, clearly, and consciously.